Man's economy or God's economy? Growing Goliaths or growing Davids? Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Dr. J.B. Gambrell relates a most interesting incident from General Stonewall Jackson's famous Valley Campaign. It was necessary for the general to get his army across the river one night, so he gave orders to the engineers to make a way for the artillery and wagons to go over. He also called his wagon master, who was a blacksmith, to headquarters and gave him instructions to get the wagon train across the river as fast as possible. The engineers went to work in their usual expert manner to devise a bridge. The blacksmith, knowing only that something was to be done in the most practical way, gathered a force and with logs and rocks and fence rails, improvised a bridge. Between midnight and day, he awakened to General Jackson and said, quote, "General, we have got all the wagons and artillery across," end quote. The astonished general asked, "Where are the engineers?" The blacksmith replied, "They're over there in a tent still drawing pictures and planning bridges." Never have we had so many experts sitting around drawing pictures and making plans as today. We need a few blacksmiths to get us over the river. The present day situation, both in the world of nations and in religion, is very much like that of the Israelites facing the Philistines with their Goliath strutting back and forth. I am sure that the top brass Israelites spent every day discussing ways and means to deal with the giant and defeat the Philistines. Then one day, little David came along and it was all over. Today, the free world is lined up against the hordes of communism and Goliath is on parade. The nations of the West are huddled in fear, confusion, and uncertainty. We have been maneuvered into an inferiority complex. Our foreign policy is based on fear. Experts spend their time in Washington and Geneva and elsewhere wrangling over what to do. Engineers are drawing the prettiest pictures of bridges ever produced. What we need is a blacksmith to get us over the river. If the Israelites had waited until they could grow a giant as big as Goliath, they would still be pitched at the Valley of Elah. Deliverance did not lie in that direction. The answer was not in growing a Goliath, but in developing a David. And that was exactly what God was doing in the solitudes around Bethlehem. Going back to the Israelites and Philistines, we are more interested in growing Goliaths than in developing Davids. We are occupied more with the strategy of the Philistines than with the Spirit of God. We are more excited over how the business world does it, how the social world does it, how the entertainment world does it, than with how God does it. We have become copycats, which gives us an inferiority complex and defeats us from the start. We are spending our time studying Goliath's armor and how to duplicate it instead of studying the secret in David and his sling and stone. The victory is won, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. This age makes much of scholarship, specialization, and showmanship. These are the weapons of the modern Philistines, and we are trying to defeat them with their own equipment. Scholarship is not enough. We need sanctified scholarship and can use all the brains we can accumulate. Specialization is not enough. The history of Christianity proves that while engineers and experts were drawing pictures and planning bridges, God has raised up blacksmiths from time to time to get us over the river. I am sure that there were experts and strategists in the Israelite army, but it remained for the shepherd boy with substandard equipment to slay Goliath. This does not mean that it is not important to draw blueprints of bridges. It does mean that God's blacksmiths usually get the job done while experts discuss how to do it. Showmanship is not enough. Glamour boys with the dash of Hollywood, plenty of public relations, and the superabundance of double talk are no match for Goliath. When some of these scholars, specialists, and showmen get together, they often make ordinary men feel inferior and self-conscious. Dr. Gambrell said, quote, We are almost dazed with the magnificence of some of their conceptions, and their methods are so fine that the common man feels he does not know where to begin," end quote. More than one grassroots preacher has gone home discouraged and bewildered after the glittering performance of some of these stars. They have said, quote, "I never could be that scholarly. I am not a specialist. I cannot put on a show," end quote. Instead of being inspired, they feel like country boys come to town, embarrassed and out of place. When our Lord fed the multitude, there was first a problem of bread. Quote, "Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?" end quote. Then there was a proposed budget. Philip suggested that 200 pennyworth of bread would not be enough. Finally, there was a provision of a boy. There is a lad here. Our Lord did not need a budget. He needed a boy. I will venture that the Israelites facing the Philistines wore out a lot of pencils figuring a budget. But God did not put Goliath out of business with a budget. He used a boy. When God raises up a man, his own brothers and sometimes his fellow preachers may belittle him. Even the brothers of our Lord did not believe in him. Once in a while, God raises up a David who does better in his own garb, and then lets Goliath furnish the sword for his own execution. We have developed a generation of diplomats instead of soldiers, specializing on how to live at truce with the adversary. David knew no substitute for victory over Goliath. The armies of the Lord today are trying to patch things up with the Philistines, but you can't talk it over with Goliath. You cannot do business with the devil. We must understand that status of our enemy today. He is not only the enemy of ourselves, but the enemy of our God. David faced the mighty in the name of the Almighty. Quote, "I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied." End quote. That all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Mind you, not that all the earth may know that there was a David in the camp, but that there was God in Israel. David was not out to show himself strong in God's behalf. God was out to show himself strong in David's behalf. My brethren, be not fearful of Goliath, who strut around in the camp of the Philistines, mocking the people of God. Be not embarrassed by those of our own number who try to match Goliath's armor or grow giants the size of the adversary. Throw away your inferiority complex in the presence of scholars, specialists, and showmen. Get alone with God on some Bethlehem hill and come to an agreement. Then go forth with sling and stone and let Saul keep his armor. Remember that the battle is the Lord's, and that you are out to demonstrate not David, but that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And I would say to you as Saul did to David, go, and the Lord be with you. Organized religion hates the preacher whose headquarters is heaven, whose superintendent is God. They are enraged when they cannot control him. The times are never propitious for the lone dissenter.